Okay, and I will open this meeting on June 8th, 2021 of the Six-Town Regional Planning Board Finance Transportation Facilities Subcommittee. We are meeting over Zoom because of the pandemic. So we will do attendance and votes by roll call. I am recording the meeting, and I see Mark Abrahams has joined us, and I don't know what happened to Alan. Hopefully he'll get back here. First order of business, I guess, is to decide who's going to take the minutes.
Well, it's Lynn's turn, so I hope she does a good job. But I guess I guess I have to do it, much as I don't want to.
Okay, well,
I just can't do another set until after town meeting.
I know.
We're doing everything at the last minute.
yeah, it's well, we'll see. Jane, how about we say that if Lynn shows up, we can see if she'll take over.
I'm gonna send the recording out for processing.
Okay. And we do have minutes from May 25th. Thank you, Michelle.
Did you actually do roll call?
Oh, I did not do roll call. Sorry. Thank you, Jane. Roll call attendance. Jane Dutcher.
Present.
Michelle Giruso.
Here.
Mike Naughton here. Alan Genovese was here, but is not here at the moment.
We just lost Mark too.
Yeah, David Young is not here, and Lynn Reynolds is not here. Okay. So minutes from May 25th. Oh, let's give Alan a chance to join us if he can.
I did not get a time enough to thoroughly read those, so.
Okay, should we put them off until next time?
That's up to you two.
It's fine with me.
I'm with me.
My bias is I'd rather have people read them, and if that way, if there's something that they feel should be changed. I did notice a few typos.
I did them fast.
It looked like it, and I mean they were good. I mean, I didn't but there were a couple that I thought either the sense wasn't clear or the sense seemed to be changed, and I thought, well, if,
Oh, that could be true. So please read them over. Yes.
So I did make a few suggestions.
Like I said, after town meeting, I'll be able to do it a little bit slower.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Well, why don't we put them off until next time, and we don't have anything from David, who took the minutes from our last meeting, so we'll put them off until next time too. Alan, are you there? Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mike. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Alan seems to be having a little trouble getting on. He was here.
I had
Maybe
trouble
it's his
getting
internet. Yeah.
I had trouble. I was on and then I couldn't hear anybody. And then as soon as the recording was announced, I lost the Zoom and had to come back in.
Huh.
Wow. See, Leiden has beautiful internet now that the town had to pay for it.
Well, I know we got a bunch of stuff to go over. And I'm not sure, I guess we should just get started. And
Yes.
people can record. We are recording, so people can just try to keep up, I guess. Okay, so Mark, I'd say the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So I sent you several things over the last 2 days. I initially did some work last week on assessments, pulling together a number of files. And I had time to discuss methodologies with both Joanne and with Tanya. And I believe I've got their methodologies in this assessment workbook and examples of that, both fiscals 21 and 22. That's one thing I want to go over with you. Number two, several years ago, maybe over 10 years ago, Steve and I did a survey on alternative assessment methodologies. And I sent you a PowerPoint of that so we could discuss several alternative methodologies that different districts are using in addition to enrollment. There are methodologies for transportation, there are methodologies for capital and debt that I want to share with you and get your thoughts. Number three, I sent you the October 1 enrollment reports, plural, from Tanya. I've requested but not received the enrollment reports from Joanne. Clearly, the resident enrollment and choice in enrollment are identified on these reports, as well as the sending district identified on these reports for Pioneer Valley's 3 schools. And I want to review that with you. Mike, you have an interest in working out a formula to pull that information off DESE's website to give you head counts for various schools. So the enrollment, the assessment workbook, the assessment PowerPoint, and I also began what I call the revenue module or the revenue workbook, just pulling together Pioneer Valley and Gil Montague's revenue budgets for 21 and 22, plus the final 21 cherry sheet and preliminary 22 cherry sheet data. So that's a lot. Tanya can't join us today. Matt's tied up today. And 2 other updates. One, after several weeks of delay, we finally got NASDAQ to get back on track for enrollment projections. And late this afternoon, I received from DESE the amended Chapter 70 SOA file, including enrollment projections, but I have not had time to look at that. I can send that to you, but again, I have not had time to look at that. So that's the agenda I have for you today. Should I just start showing you these workbooks, Mike?
Mhm.
You're muted.
You're
Mike, you're on
muted.
mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just to let you know, Mark, I missed a little of your beginning because Alan was having trouble. But I think that's okay. I'll just try to catch up. You should
Yeah,
start
the beginning
talking about
was really the outline I sent you in the email today.
it. Okay, good. I
yesterday.
figured that. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's just keep going.
All right, I'm gonna just take these in no rhyme or reason. Can you transfer me, host?
I've made screen sharing
Let's see if I can do
multiple
it.
participants. So why don't you see if that works?
I want to start with enrollment, so I got to call that file up. Give me a second. Yeah, it's not coming up.
Mark, you're aware that Tanya resigned, right?
Yeah, 60-day notice. Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah.
All right, let's start the assessment. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so this is several tabs. One, a description, general description of the various methodologies. Gil Montague's assessment summary for 21. Gil Montague's debt assessment, Montague's affordable assessment, Gil Montague's operating assessment for 21, assessment summary for 22, and then Pioneer Valley, the same sequence. The summary, Pioneer's 5-year average enrollment, Pioneer's transportation assessment, and Pioneer's capital assessment. Let me come back to the beginning. Just a brief narrative.
Can you
both-
make that screen wider? There we go. Thank you.
Let me make it bigger.
Oh, we can see it now.
Yeah, but I got to read it.
Oh,
All right. Both districts statutory, which begins with the minimum district contributions for the member towns calculated by the state. Both districts assess member towns for the excess of net school spending above the minimum and transportation based on headcount enrollments. To my knowledge, that includes resident enrollment and choice in enrollment. Gil Montague uses headcounts based on the October 1 enrollment report. Pioneer uses a 5-year average of headcount enrollment. Pioneer plans to amend the regional agreement this fall, changing to foundation enrollment. Gil Montague assesses capital based on the town's share of the high school and Sheffield Windows debt. Pioneer Valley's capital assessment is based on 50% EQV and 50% headcount enrollment.
Mark, one quick sort of nitpicky point. Sheffield windows only apply to Montague.
Correct, and it's only through fiscal 23.
Right.
And the Pioneer capital assessment, that headcount is strictly the high school.
And that's for the carpet, is that correct?
That's for the carpet. And she should have a statement there about the debt, which is also, she lists in the general budget, but is really separate, has calculated differently also.
So there's a separate calculation for debt beyond the carpet?
Yes,
Yeah.
That has not come up yet.
The school lunch program?
no, that school lunch is part of the operating
Oh.
budget.
No, I mean the debt that we incurred.
That's a loan, and that is calculated separately, and then she adds it on to the bottom of the operating budget as the last line item.
So what other debt are you talking about, Jane?
That's the debt I'm talking about, the loan.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, okay.
But it's not, it's a loan to the district. It's not a loan for the lunch program. It's a loan to cover what was in the red.
Right. Well, semantics.
Well, there's more money in there than this
Yeah, I know.
lunch program, so I don't want to confuse everybody with that.
All right, Gil
Well, Gil
Montague.
Montague has something going on with Medicaid also, I believe.
Right. Yep.
We'll see that when we get to the revenue.
Okay.
Gil Montague.
But I mean, they're paying back Medicaid, so,
Yeah, they're paying back about 47,000 a year,
okay.
but that's net of their receipts. I believe she doesn't consider that debt.
Now, does Montague also always give a standard assessment separate from this calculation?
What do you mean?
I don't know what I mean. I thought that you were assessed a specific dollar amount that got added in every year after the state got done looking at your finances. Am I wrong about that?
That's not ringing a bell.
Okay.
Are you talking about the affordable assessment, Jane?
Is that what I don't know what it's called, Mark.
Give me one more tab and we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right, so this is hard to read because it's a PDF that I exported to Excel. But here's the high school debt up top. And here's the Sheffield windows on the bottom.
Can you make that darker or no?
I could probably make it darker. I'll just bold it.
Yeah.
Didn't help much. So
It's a little bit better.
the high school debt runs through fiscal 26. The Windows debt through fiscal 23. April 1, no, 22. And this is Montague's affordable assessment. So Mike, I got the calculations from Joanne and I included your comments down here. Joanne says that this is an estimate that she comes up with every December. And then your comment was when the Chapter 70 numbers come out in January, and then these are blended together or something.
Well, yeah, as I understand it, essentially Montague knows pretty early. Montague has a pretty good idea of what its affordable number is. It can change over the course of the process, but it usually doesn't change a whole lot. Most years it doesn't change a whole lot. So Montague gives that number to Gil Montague in November, December timeframe, which is before the student numbers are known. So at that point, Joanne just takes that number and does a rough estimate. Basically, she compares it to the previous year's number, I believe, and
Yep, I'm
projects
here
out.
now,
So-
Mike.
Oh,
Joanne.
okay.
I joined,
Joanne.
so if you want, I can
Oh,
help
great.
here.
You
I
wanna
joined
take
right
over?
at the right time.
Great.
So,
Perfect timing.
yeah, right, we get the affordable assessment, and I do compare it to the prior year. And if it's a 2% increase, then I say Montague will have a 2% increase, Gil will have a 2% increase. And I figure out what the total assessments will be, estimate what my chapter 70 will be, what all the other revenue sources will be, and I come up with a total number, and then we start building the budget and we say, okay, we're gonna go to 22 million this year. And we try to get a budget that comes as close to 22 million as we can. And when the minimum contributions come out, then I see what that does to those two assessment increases. Are they both 2%, or is one 4% and the other one's a negative? Like this year, one ended up being a negative, a decrease assessment, and the other one was an increase. So Montague's assessment stayed right where their assessment landed, and we had to find a place to reduce the budget because Gill's assessment went down considerably this year. So we had to find some corrections to make in the budget, either, adjusting our revenues to come up with different revenues to cover that, or reducing some positions, or, making other changes.
Joanne, was that because of student population?
The student population was part of it, but the other part was just the minimum contributions were considerably different.
Really?
So, if minimum contributions aren't going up the same, like 2% each, maybe one's going down for, so Gill, if they have an increase at the tech school, their minimum contribution may come down for Gill
Oh,
Montague.
I see. Of course. Okay.
And
Sure.
when theirs comes down, it could be a significant percentage for them. It's a lot harder with the small schools. So, with the small towns, I find that we're actually pretty stable. Montague, we're able to stay with the affordable assessment of the 2% or the 4% or whatever that number comes in at. And Gill sort of fluctuates, there could be a 1% or a 9% or a negative. And, I found that was the case when I was at Mohawk too. I had 8 towns in one district that I was dealing with, and there was a lot of ups and downs, but there was no one big school, one big town in there that sort of stayed stable. Every single one was relatively small. And so there was ups and downs with every single one of those towns. There could be towns with 15% increases and other towns with a 5% decrease.
So does this keep it more level?
This keeps it level for Montague, or where Montague needs it. But Gill, if I look at a 5-year history for Gill, their average is right around the percentage that Montague has paid over 5 years. However, they've had a lot of ups and downs over those years.
Mhm.
So it doesn't keep it
is
level.
part of the
for all
contributing
towns.
thing when they do their 3-year
I missed that.
does part of, I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, does part of that have to do with the 3-year evaluation when they reevaluate things like right now, house properties are just going off the charts? Is that going to play in when they report that to the state about, how they're determining that? I never was clear on that.
It could cause some problems.
That would
could
have nothing
cause-
to do with it, or that would?
It could have something to do with it. And that you see more of an effect of that in the very small towns. So when I was Mohawk, somebody in Heath had a gigantic increase in their income. Their reported income was like, a couple $1 million or something ridiculous like that. And it impacted Heath's assessment by $100,000, which for them was huge for 1 year. And then the following years, it just gradually went back down. It was a huge hit for them, but it was based on the equalized or the EQV for the valuation, but it was based on their income that year. Somebody's income went up one time and then it went right back down. And it was a huge impact.
Remember, income
Okay.
and EQV are
All right,
50-50.
thanks.
Remember that income and EQV are 50-50 in the wealth.
Right.
Right.
Do they do
Yeah,
anything about equalizing
okay.
income like they do the property?
So they devalue the property and inflate the income in order to get to 50-50.
They should keep their hands out of it.
All right, Joanne's fiscal 21, 22. Pioneer Valley. This is their actual calculations. Tanya's 5-year average of enrollment. So I also sent her Pioneer Valley October 1 and the 2 elementary schools October 1 enrollment reports. Joanne, are you going to send me yours?
The enrollment reports,
Yeah, October 1.
the
Latest,
ones that are posted by Desi?
yeah, the latest ones.
Are you talking about all of our students that were in our buildings on October 1? I didn't see
Yeah.
your email. I'm a little behind on email.
Okay, when you get caught up, I asked for your October 1, the latest October 1 enrollment report.
Okay. I thought that we had sent that to you already.
Aye. If you did, I apologize. I can look.
Yeah, I thought it was in those files or, possibly in that spreadsheet, the PowerPoint, but I can.
All right, Tanya's transportation assessment. Sorry, I just lost it. Damn. Hold on. I gotta stop sharing for a minute. Get back. There we
Oh,
go.
Len's here.
And Pioneer Valley's capital assessment based on EQV of the total of the 4 towns at 50% and enrollment of the 4 towns at 50%.
And you notice that that enrollment is just the high school. It's not, no elementary numbers in there.
Right, it's PVRS,
Right.
correct. So one of the things you asked of us,
Mark, could you hold your thought just a second?
sure.
Welcome, Lynn. Jane, do you want to talk about who's doing the minutes?
No, I'll just do them.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you. So Steve and I did a survey many years ago on assessment methodologies, and we had some responses. So prior to 93, when ed reform came about, substantially all regional agreements had the assessment methodologies based on some form of enrollment. And this is pre-statutory. Statutory came out with the 1993 Ed Reform Act. At that time, the statutory assessment methodology came out affirming that wealthier communities should pay more. That was when the minimum required district contributions to regions were established and reaffirmed that the statutory method was the preferred assessment methodology over the alternative, that is the alternative to the statutory. So here's a refresher of the statutory method, starting with the regional local contribution. And then the excess of net school spending over that minimum. And then member shares for transportation, capital/debt pursuant to assessment provisions of the regional agreement. So even though this is statutory, you still can have different methods for the excess of net school spending over the minimum, capital, transportation, capital/debt.
This may be, I just want to make sure I understand this. What this is saying is that the statutory requirement is that assessments be calculated according to the regional agreements.
And the regional agreement must address these three areas.
Okay,
Once,
I'm just wondering what the law, I mean, it's hard
Once-
for me to imagine what else could happen, but
so once the minimum is achieved, the region can assess the rest on any method it so chooses,
okay,
but it's got to address the excess, transportation, and capital, and it could all be the same method.
So basically, Mark, they're taking B, subtracting A, and then taking that and apportioning that out according to the regional agreement, plus transportation and so forth, right?
Correct, correct. The alternate is the same. Member share of the net school spending. And there's no minimum to deduct here, so there's no excess. It's just pure net school spending. And then you'll see the cost for transportation, capital/debt is the same that you saw earlier. The difference is that there's no minimum when it comes to the alternate or the agreement assessment method. But it's got to be spelled out in the regional agreement. I'm showing you this because you've asked us to come up with recommendations as to how the assessments should look in a combined 6-town region. So I want to go over these with you. The statutory is the preferred method, preferred by DESE. If you have the statutory method, you don't have to notify DESE, although you must check the box in the end of the year report as to whether you're using the statutory or the alternate agreement method. 2/3 votes of the members is required, and the statutory is used in about 2/3 of Massachusetts districts. The alternative, 100%. A vote must be taken each year by the member towns to utilize this method. Once voted, the district has to notify the DESE, and about 1/3 of the agreements use the alternative method. Those estimates were provided to me by Chris Lynch. So in 2006, Steve and I did a survey. We had 11 respondents. Most were using headcount. Sorry, most were using enrollment, which could be foundation enrollment or headcount enrollment. And resident enrollment is based on students who live in the district and attend one of the district schools. This would exclude choice in and charter out. So it's different than count because it would exclude choice in. The foundation enrollment are the resident students that go to a public school regardless of what public school they attend. So that would include choice out, charter out, and not include choice in. Headcount represents all students attending the school in the member towns. It includes choice in, it includes the resident students, and it excludes choice out. And right now, headcount is used by both Gil Montague and Pioneer Valley. Pioneer Valley on a 5-year average.
Mark, can I clarify? Maybe Joanne can answer. Do your head counts include choice in students for doing the calculation? Maybe she's not here.
Is that for Joanne to answer?
Sorry, Mike, I'm multitasking here. Can you
No
repeat
problem.
your question?
Yeah, well, looking at the middle paragraph on the right there, saying head count represents all students attending, includes choice in. Mark just said this is the method that you and Pioneer Valley are using. Pioneer doing a rolling average. Is it true that when you do your calculation, you include choice in students?
No. When
Okay.
we do a head count for our October 1 numbers, yeah, we're counting how many students are in the schools from all different towns,
That
including
includes
choice
in, right?
and include Irving. But when we assess the towns, we're only assessing Gill and Montague. So those are the only kids we count. We can't
So
count
you're
Irving
using the
students.
foundation enrollment.
So is that really what the third paragraph describes? Students who live in the district and attend one of the district schools.
Residential enrollment. Right. So the kids that live in our towns and attend our schools. Those are the
Okay.
kids that we count for our above minimum contribution.
Okay. So a
And
question.
transportation.
And for transportation. Right. We're not transporting Irving. Irving pays for that. We're not transporting our school choice kids. We're only transporting Gill and Montague students. So, and there's no way to assess anybody else anyways.
Right, and that's so I have a question for Mark. Looking at the middle paragraph there, I don't understand how that could work. Because choice in students are not coming from any of the member towns, how would their presence affect member town assessments?
I believe that Pioneer also uses the third bullet.
It would make sense.
Yeah,
I would think, I don't understand.
I've been on board objecting if any choice students get counted in as BES students when it comes to calculations on.
Well,
assessment.
especially if they're choicing into the high school, how would you?
No, that's it, exactly.
Right.
I don't-
I
so I
think
don't-
that, head count, I think if you're thinking about 3 different ways to assess towns, I think that you could say, you can use the foundation enrollment. There are 3 different enrollments that you could use. So foundation enrollment would be 1. Head count in our building would be a second one of just those 2 towns, the towns that are members. And the third one of residential enrollment, maybe that would mean it's all the students. Well, that would just be back to foundation. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I can see head count possibly working in both districts for the elementary schools, saying, okay, if they're attending Burleson Elementary, Burleson gets charged, but on the other hand, there are kids from say Leiden going to Berniston. So is Leiden off the hook, or does Leiden get included? I mean,
No, I think, so in that case, so we have that happening too. So we have Montague students that attend the Gill Elementary, and we have
Right.
Gill students that attend the Montague Elementary schools. And so we just count how many Gill students are there, how many Montague students are there. We don't
Right.
care which one of our 4 schools they're attending.
Right, and if they're choicing in from Northfield, they don't.
Then we
get
don't
counted
count them at
in the
all.
assessment. Yeah, so I guess I don't understand how that middle paragraph describes a method that could actually be used to figure assessments. I understand the first one and I understand the third one, but I don't understand the second one.
I'm just giving you results of a survey.
Well,
Yeah. So
I think-
Joanne, I'm confused. Do
okay.
you use the foundation enrollment October 1 report for your assessments?
Not the foundation enrollment, because foundation enrollment would include our students that are choiced out. So our above minimum contribution only includes our students that live in our towns and attend our schools in district.
Okay.
I mean, they also include, like, you know, our out of district placements. They would include those too,
Right. Yeah.
but not choice out and not
Okay.
choice in. So not foundation.
Okay.
And can I clarify something? My understanding, maybe I'm wrong, is that October 1st enrollment and foundation enrollment are actually 2 different things that are figured in different ways. Is that
Right.
true or?
So,
That's true.
right, we take our October 1 count. So we look at all the students that are in our buildings.
Right,
And they could be school choice students coming to us. They could be our Irving students that attend. And we submit that to the state on October 1. Then the state takes those choice students and the Irving students and they give them back to the towns that are financially responsible for them. And they become their foundation enrollment student.
okay, so you tell the state both the counts and where they come from, and the state uses that to calculate the foundation enrollments for the different
That's right.
towns.
Yep.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we have choice students out in Greenfield, or we have charter students attending, you know, the charter school in Greenfield, those schools are reporting our students to the state. And then the state decides this is your foundation enrollment, and they pull from all those districts that reported.
And for purposes of your assessment,
Right. And that's what causes so much.
is Alan speaking?
Go ahead.
He's having trouble with his.
No more.
Okay.
I was gonna say, that's what causes the confusion, because people look at the in-seat numbers and then they look at the foundation enrollment. And they don't understand that the state did some math. And people look and say, you know, why do we have 2 different numbers? You know, something's wrong. And that's what creates you know, the problem from the public.
Yeah.
So for assessments, Joanne uses the Gill residents, the Montague residents, plus her out-of-district placements.
That are attending our schools. Plus out of district, like a special ed out of district placement. Yes.
And I believe that is the current procedure for PVRS. And I think that the new agreement that they hope to present to the town someday is going to switch to foundation enrollment, but the district hasn't even voted on that packet and they haven't sent it to the towns yet, so.
Right.
Right. And the reason that we use that for our enrollment, for our assessments, is because that's what our regional agreement says also.
Right.
So the regional agreement was put in back in the 80s, before school choice and charter were even a thing. And
Yeah.
so there wouldn't have been any reason to have that language in the regional agreement. So it says the students, the students living in those towns attending the Gill Montague schools, basically, is the language of the regional agreement. So, yeah, it probably would be good to include the foundation enrollment students. You could have, you know, 20% of the students going off to some other place, and and maybe only 15% from another town. So that's not exactly fair when they're not paying the full freight for all of their students. But
I agree. That may be a question for another day.
yeah,
All right, there are several alternative transportation assessments listed here. You can read them as easily as I can.
can you go back to that?
Yeah,
So the first budget is based on member budgets? Are you meaning foundation enrollment or above minimum enrollment?
trying to remember, Joanne.
And then the other two are the bus runs for each town.
Yeah, so number one, I believe is not, it's just a percentage of the budgets. So if it's a $1 million budget, town A has 600,000, town B, 400,000, 60%, 40%.
It's just, basically, it's the same assessment that you came up with for the operating budget in the previous slides.
Right, we use.
Yeah. It's just. And so does PVRS currently.
Capital combinations of enrollment, EQV, income, and combining EQV and income to get you the so-called combined effort yield. And you saw in Pioneer Valley the use of enrollment at 50% and EQV at 50%.
Are you talking about minimum contribution? Like just coming up with what the minimum contributions are for capital assessments?
Not the minimum contribution, the actual capital assessment. So the carpet is roughly what, $8,000 or $9,000. EQV of the 4 towns, 50% of that. The high school headcount enrollment, 50% of that, and do the math.
Yeah, ours is much simpler than that.
Yours is a percentage of shares of debt, correct?
Students in the building is how we come up with a percentage. So if there's 400 kids from Montague in a building and 100 kids from Gill in a building, then that's our split.
So
Like,
it'd be a 4/5 split.
right. Fifths versus 1/5.
Yeah.
Right, and so then we just split the capital that way. But if it's a Montague-owned building, Montague pays all of it. So the only split is really for the high school. And it's based on the students in the building. I don't look at the resident enrollment. I don't look at EQV. I don't look at aggregate income or combined effort yield. I'm just looking at how many kids are in the building and what's the cost of the capital. Because all this other stuff is part of our regular assessments, not our capital assessments.
But this is just presenting different ways that it might be figured, right?
That's correct. In different ways, other districts are dealing with capital. So my point is there are different ways to deal with transportation, capital, and debt. So of the 11, see if I can blow this up a bit. Eight were using the pupil enrollment as of October 1. One was a 3-year average, 2 a 3-year rolling average. 2 were using foundation enrollment. And 1, the municipal local contribution percentage of the member towns. Transportation, 10 with the operating budget assessments. 1 used foundation enrollment for the transportation assessment. Capital, 6 used pupil enrollment, 2 foundation enrollment, 1 the municipal local contributions, and 2 are using EQV and October 1 enrollment at 50% each. So that gives you a sense of some alternatives, and we could run numbers based on a select number of these. I don't want to run numbers for like 20, 30 alternatives. So I want you to think about some of these alternatives and what might you want to see when we get to that point in coming up with the assessments for the 6-town region.
I have a question about EQV. Is that actually in the agreement in some places, the district agreement? How they do capital costs? I don't remember that being in our agreement.
EQVs are not in our current agreement. They're written into the new agreement.
They are?
Yep.
She's been using EQV though.
Oh, she's showing you, she shows them to you so you can see what the difference would be in the future, but she's not using them.
That's interesting.
She's
So
trying to
Jane,
find,
is there a capital assessment now?
yes, that
Yeah.
carpet assessment.
And it's not based on EQV, 50%?
I thought, I know she says, oh, Leiden's EQV was high. That's why you're increased.
That maybe the capital is EQV. I was talking about the operating budget calculation, and that's.
Oh, the operating budget is not EQV.
No,
Correct.
operating isn't. No, you're right.
Right. But the
I think
capital is
capital
50%
is.
EQV and 50% enrollment.
But if
Right.
that's not in the regional agreement, how can we be doing assessments on that?
So it's got to be in the regional agreement in order to do the assessments using that methodology.
Okay, I'll reread them.
Okay, fair enough. Where are we? Can you see some revenues?
Yep.
So this is pretty straightforward. Revenue sources from Gil Montague. Mike, here's the contra. Medicaid.
Okay,
Irving charter. Sorry, Irving tuition and seats. And then the assessments for the various towns to go into the revenue. Pioneer, something similar.
Well, there's the bond.
There's the bond proceeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gil Montague's final 21 cherry sheet. Pioneer Valley's 21 final cherry sheet. Gil Montague's Pioneer's preliminary cherry sheet for 22. Same with Gil Montague. And we'll be adding more to this workbook shortly.
Sure.
And Joanne has sent me the
It starts raining.
October 1 report, so I can forward that to you. Questions or thoughts?
well, I'll chime in. Going back to the enrollment, we got the head counts. I mean, looking at the head counts from Pioneer that we got earlier, I just want to make sure that it's still on the list, that we're going to see how those numbers break out into resident pupils in the school, choice in, and tuition in. And also how the choice outs and the charter outs combined with the residents in the school to equal the foundation budget. Because I've had trouble, I've looked at some of the files that Mark sent around earlier on the choice in and out and the charter out, and I was not able to reconcile those numbers with the DART enrollment reports. I did notice the DART enrollment reports appeared to be the same as the NESDEC reports for the years that were history in the NESDEC report. So I'm curious what those numbers actually are, because I couldn't get them to reconcile with foundation plus choice in minus choice out minus charter out plus tuition in. And I'm just kind of generally, I'd like to be able to understand how all those numbers, where all those numbers go. I mean, if Joanne and Tanya every October 1st count all the kids and all the buildings and send in those counts along with where they're from to DESE, we're looking at the numbers that they've come up with here for what their head counts are. I'd like to know if it's possible to go to some place or some set of places on the DESE website and find a bunch of numbers that would come up with the same result. and would also tie into the total foundation enrollment numbers.
Like, we've tried to do that every year with our enrollment numbers. And so Michael Sullivan always had a chart that he would put together, and he would say, this many students in district, this many are private, this many are charter and choice and all of that. And then we would wait for the foundation enrollment numbers to come out, wait for our choice and charter numbers to come out in December. Choice and charter come out. And so we plug those numbers in. And when the foundation enrollment comes in, we never land quite on the same number. Because when we're looking at our October 1 for who's in our building, we're looking at head count. And when we get the foundation enrollment numbers, it's based on that head count back in October. But when we get our enrollment for choice and charter out in December, there's already been changes. So kids have come, kids have gone, you know, they no longer live in our town, but they're attending that school. And so the choice and charter numbers become FTEs of students over the year. And so those fluctuate, where October 1
They're not
is
based on the head count?
well, by the time the numbers come out in December and they say this is your enrollment at the different choice out or charter out schools, the numbers have changed since October 1.
You're saying the delta, October, November, December,
Right,
students move around and they're not captured.
right. So October 1 is a point in time, and we don't necessarily have exactly all the numbers to add up to that. I've struggled with it every year.
Well,
Right.
that's partly why I was hoping Mark could clear it up.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it should be a simple calculation. I guess the part I'm not quite getting is if you collect a bunch of numbers on October 1st, I understand completely that by November 1st, December 1st, January 1st, if you collected those numbers again, they'd be different because things happen. But if you collect a bunch of numbers on October 1st, and then those are used by the state to figure out all those different things, I don't see why it matters that that may not reflect reality on January 1st. They should still all tie together from the
Right.
point of view of October 1st.
Right, but we don't have the details from October 1st of our choice students that went out or our charter out students. We don't have
Right,
the,
where you don't, but somebody else does because
the
they're,
state might, right?
I mean, I mean,
You would
particularly
think,
in the, I mean, so I guess that's what I'm wondering is, you know, is there some sort of a lag in the collection of the numbers or what happens? Because if everybody's reporting as of October 1st, then it seems to, you know, and that's what the state is using for their number. I just don't understand why you couldn't get everything to tie together from the point of view of October 1st. And sort of leave aside the fact that by January 1st, that might not be true anymore. To me, it's that's kind of so what? You take the October 1st numbers and they're the ones you play with. And if you're looking for trends in, you know, whatever. So anyway, that's my question is why don't those all tie together? If they're all collected on the same day and they're all sent to the state and the state just takes those numbers, I mean, I think I think you're violating a basic rule of the number system in arithmetic if they don't tie together.
When you do the head count, Joanne, it's students in the classroom. But if Susie's and Johnny are out sick today, they still get counted as being in the classroom, correct?
yes,
So if they're actually out sick because their parents moved them to Whately, they will get counted in your classroom and they will get counted in Whately.
well,
And that's why the numbers don't add up, Mike.
no, because they need to withdraw them. And so it's based on the withdrawal date. So I guess some districts could say, oh, I'm gonna use an October 1 enrollment date, but we're waiting for the withdrawal paperwork to come through before we withdraw them from our system.
Mhm.
And until we submit that paperwork to another school to say the student has withdrawn from our school, the other school shouldn't be enrolling them, but I guess that could happen on October 1 at both schools.
Yeah, I'm
but
just
it
trying to,
shouldn't.
I'm just trying to give Mike an answer for why numbers
Yeah.
don't even.
Well, and I'm still not convinced, Jane, because let's say that, let's say that did happen. You would simply have, you know,
I
I
think,
forget your names, but John and Jane would show up in Gil Montague, and they would also show up in Whately.
I know,
So the total count
but
would
these
be-
are, but the only numbers are being submitted, not names.
Oh, no, there's student ID numbers. So
Oh,
each
they are.
student has a
Okay.
designated number with the state. And so they should be, Mike, you're right. You're absolutely right. It should be easy enough to do. Mark, do you know if you can get the details of choice and charter out on October 1 to see how that foundation enrollment is put together? Because I've never been able to get anything that told me exactly what how my foundation budget adds up to my foundation enrollment, I mean.
So why don't we, why don't we put together a formula? And then I'll send it in to Desi and see if we can get an answer. But I think you'd have to include an adjustment for homeschool kids and an adjustment for tuition in or out in that formula.
Well, homeschools wouldn't count. Tuition students would be the town that's financially responsible for them. So if we have a tuitioned out student, we would count them.
I understand, but I'm talking, Mike, if I understand you, you're trying to take all these numbers and foot it down to a head count. Am I reading you right?
Yes, that's one of the things. I'm trying to do two things. One is to take the numbers and foot it down to a head count. And the other is to take the numbers and build it up to the foundation enrollment. Because as I see it, Montague's foundation enrollment, it should be the sum of the Montague kids attending Montague schools and the Montague kids attending, choicing out to other schools, and the Montague kids chartering out to other schools. And the Montague intending enrollment should be the Montague kids attending Montague schools plus other kids choicing into Montague schools plus other kids tuitioning into Montague schools. And I guess I should have included in the foundation enrollment, maybe Montague kids tuitioning out to other schools.
Right, we could have some Montague kids tuitioning out. They would be in our October 1 count.
They would,
No, if-
you
I
would
believe,
count,
yeah.
you would
If a
count them?
child goes to private school, they get counted in the foundation enrollment?
Nope, not
Nope.
private, just public.
Okay. Just public. So when
Homeschool
we're
and
talking
private out.
tuition students, we're talking about SPED students basically that are being,
Right. Yeah, I'd have to check on that. I'm not sure. So like we have a student that we were tuitioning to Pioneer. I'd have to check to see how that student is counted on October 1.
Are
I'm
they
not positive.
doing a special education?
Right.
Is it a special education program at Pioneer?
Yes.
Okay. Question, Mark,
So
can you hear
Mark,
me
is
now?
that clear? Sorry, Alan. I just want to make sure Mark understands.
Yeah, Mike, I'll write it up. I'll send it to you. You can edit it and then we can get it off to Desi.
That sounds good. Okay. Sorry, Alan. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I remember I never got an update on after they got the October 1 report and never a data update on what those numbers look like. So that'd be interesting to see what we get. But I do remember I would always, and I can't remember when I'd get it. I thought it was in December. I would get a sheet that by name and by whether they were charter choice in or out. And so I would get I'd get a report from the state like that. Do you ever recall that, Joanne? Because that, I mean, you'd have to then manually, I guess, you know, work off that sheet if you wanted to make the numbers tie back. But I don't recall ever, you know, a new data update. And that's probably where Mike was getting, you know, here's where the kids are in, here's where they're out. But I don't even think, that didn't come out in October 1. That was late December.
Right. So that's what
Joanne
I'm
is
saying.
Yeah.
We get that list in December. And so I take our October 1 numbers of students in our buildings. I take our list of charter students. Then I take our list of school choice students that's from December. And I put them all in the spreadsheet. And then I expect that's going to be our foundation enrollment when the foundation budget comes out, and it's not. It never is. It's always off by something.
Okay.
Because, right, those numbers in December, I don't think are from October 1. So the numbers that we have to count our choice out and charter out students aren't from the same date. The state probably has different numbers, but that's not what we're getting in
Well,
December.
what does the
Well-
state use to figure foundation enrollment then, I wonder?
Well, they must have, I mean, they have to have the numbers from October 1, but they're,
Yeah.
if you just add those numbers up, but that's not what it is. They don't add up.
And
Yeah.
you
So
don't
Mark-
have to submit them December 1 anymore, right? It's just
No.
October 1, no more
There's
December
a
1.
January school attending children report in January that gets submitted, but that's like the private schools and homeschool.
So Mark, they actually do an update then in December and they move everything around, or is that a moot point? I guess they would have to do that, but I remember once someone saying to me, no, it's, you know, that's what it is. It's October 1 at that point in time, or we'd be calculating this forever. So I'm hearing you say that they do all these adjustments kind of behind the scenes. That's what Mark's looking for and Mike's looking for. And then they use that. Is that correct, Mark?
So my understanding is they might adjust the foundation enrollment for the final numbers that are published after the state budget is approved. Joanne, do you know if that's a fact?
What do they do with the numbers?
So in the preliminary numbers, you get the foundation enrollment based on the October 1 report.
Right.
And then the state budget is passed and you get the final Chapter 70 numbers. Are the foundation enrollments ever adjusted in your experience from the preliminary numbers?
I think maybe only if there's a correction to the October 1 counts. I don't
Yeah.
think they would change that.
So it's a correction, not movement.
Right. No, because it still dates back to October 1.
Right. That's my understanding.
Okay, that's what I thought. So it's kind of a moot point in a way. I mean, I guess for the you know, the mathematician that wants every number to come out. But I don't know if it really, I didn't know if when we got our numbers from the state for what we needed to, towns needed to spend. Well, the interesting to see, Mark, how they respond to your email.
Joanne, do you know if they have charter and choice numbers as of October 1?
Well, I mean, when I send, well, I don't do it, but when we send our October 1 numbers to the state, they're getting our choice in as of October 1, which means they can take that and use it to get choice out for all the schools that are sending kids to us.
And you
And
have in your report 65 school choice students.
Which report are you looking at?
October 1, The one you just sent me.
Yeah, if that's the number that's on there. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for this evening?
I feel like you're a sleuth.
Well, if we could solve Mike's equation, that would be nice, but I'm not sure if that, we'll give it a shot.
Well, yeah, I figured Desi's got a, I mean, to me, there's got to be some explanation. A bunch of numbers are collected on October 1st. It makes no sense to me that Joanne can't reconcile stuff later on unless something is missing from this picture, and Desi should know what that missing piece is. So,
Makes me crazy every year, Mike.
well, and that shouldn't
Right.
happen.
Should add up. But
Well,
that's why I'm guessing that what we see in December for the choice out numbers are December numbers, not October numbers.
Well,
Otherwise,
and-
it
and
would add
maybe-
up.
Maybe that's true, but in which case, at least they could tell us that that's what's happening.
Right.
Seems to me somebody's got to
And
know.
part of that answer might be what you asked. You're gonna find out how they're treating some of those tuitioned out for special ed and stuff. That might be part of that equation.
It might be. And that's,
Yeah, I think the number's off by more than that, but
Oh,
because we only have 2.
so I'm very interested in seeing if we can get an answer to this, because it does not make any sense to me, and it doesn't make any sense that it shouldn't make any sense, because we're just talking numbers and arithmetic, and it ought to make sense. Okay. Anybody else reactions for Mark? Comments, questions?
And we'll have an update for you on the salaries and the budgets next time. I'm also going to start discussions with Steve on what kind of expectations might we receive in terms of the output from the Education Committee, Subcommittee, because we have to make sure that our module, our tool, can accept what they give us. Let me rephrase that. We're going to do our best to ensure that our tool will be able to accept what they give us.
Okay.
Mike, I'm going to ask that you stay on for a minute so you and I can go over this formula and make sure I get it right. Is that okay?
Yes, it is. Okay, but and we got are we, I guess we're done with Mark at this point. Hearing no objections. Joanne, I do have a question for you on the transportation report. You had told me to expect something around the middle of June. Do you know if that's still realistic?
Well, I can check in with Pam again and let you know.
Okay, I was
Pam's
just
been
looking
dealing
ahead.
with them.
I was looking ahead and thinking we've got essentially 3 meetings left. The third one being on June 29th, which is a little late to have any follow-ups. And should we expect to be able to have some sort of a presentation on the transportation report?
Pam may be able to give something when she, hold on one second, my computer's gonna turn off.
Okay.
Well, not sure if I fixed it. Yeah, I'll check with Pam and see if she can give some update next week at the meeting. Are you meeting next week?
We're gonna meet next week,
Okay,
and we'll also meet on the 22nd. And I don't think it makes a lot of difference, except that it may make a difference to Mark and Matt. I'm just thinking we don't have a lot of meetings left, and we've got to,
right,
you know, we may have a lot to talk about,
yeah,
depending on what happens. So I'd at least like to kind of know what the schedule is for the, I mean, you know, it's not an emergency, but when we can know when there might be something to report,
okay,
and when that report might be able to be done. I'd say that either next week or the 22nd should work. That way, if there's anything that needs to be followed up on, it could be.
okay. I can email Pam and I'll CC you on that.
Okay,
And I'm away next week, so I won't be able to be here next week, but,
okay.
Okay.
Um,
so I'll
Okay.
do that tonight. I'll send an email and see if she can
Okay.
attend one of those meetings, but I have to get into another meeting now.
Okay, well, thanks, Joanne.
All right, you're
Um,
welcome.
And Mark, I'll keep you updated on that because that may affect how you schedule things for us. Because if we have to take up a chunk of a meeting for a transportation report, that'll affect you guys. Other than that, anybody else have anything?
I just want to tell Michelle that the current district agreement does refer to equalized evaluation for capital.
It does, okay.
Wow.
And the district committee, regional district committee that I was on, the subcommittee, finished their work. It went to the attorney. It went back to, so it's going to be coming before the board pretty darn quick now.
Oh, good.
Well, you know, and then you're going to vote on it as a school committee, and then you're going to send it out to the 4 district towns who are going to send it to their attorneys.
Yeah,
And maybe next annual town meetings, it will be on there.
right. Jane, we should get together if we have the same attorney.
Yes. That's true.
All right. Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
Okay,
Need to go shut some windows. It's gonna rain any minute.
okay. I think we are. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Jane Dutcher,
aye.
Michelle Druso,
Aye.
Alan Genovese,
Aye.
Lynn Reynolds, Mike Naughton, aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Okay, bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Mike, you gonna stay on with me?
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Good to see you, Alan.
Yeah, and that meeting was the next day and I was in a Zoom meeting, right? You did your accounting thing?
I did. I sent you
Yeah,
an
I
invite.
appreciate the invitation. Yeah, no, I did, I saw that and I was in a meeting for like 2.5 hours. I was kind of upset.
It's a good session.
So thank you for the invite.
All right, Mike,
Yes,
foundation enrollment,
okay,
less, school choice out, less charter out, less tuition out, plus choice in, plus tuition in, equals head count.
well, let's put it this way. If that's not the case, why isn't it the case? Because that's what makes sense to me.
All right, let me write it up, send it to you. You can edit, and then we can send it to Desi.
Okay,
All right?
sounds, yeah, and just, since we're talking, the other piece is town students attending the town school plus town students choicing out of the town school plus town students tuitioning out of the town school plus town students chartering out of the town school equals foundation enrollment. And again, if that's not the case, why isn't it the case? And in both cases, if that's what's happening, can we find numbers on the DESI website where we can reconcile? So given Tanya's and Joanne's reports, we could go out to DESI and say, okay, here we found all these same numbers out there.
So town students attending town schools.
Yep.
Plus town students choicing out.
Yep.
Plus town students tuitioning out.
Yep.
Plus town students charter out
Yep.
equals foundation enrollment.
Right. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, so last report, I actually tried to do that and it didn't foot.
Right. Well, I think that's the question for DESI is why, why not?
Okay. All right, anything else for today?
Nope, I'm all set. I think that's good.
All right, have a good week.
Hey, you too, Mark. And if you want to send me an email, that sounds good.
Yeah.